Okay, this is the employer retention tax credit. This will cover all three of the credits. There was the first one in 2020. It got revised in late 2020 to add additional companies. And then the third law was passed in around end of March of 2021. So there are three different programs for ERTC. So it does cover multiple areas. We touched upon this back in September and October of last year. We revised a couple of things. One, the IRS is significantly backlogged. Not much has changed there. Two, which year the credit is to be reported. That is important because it took them 16 months to issue the guidance on how to report and when to report and what year to report. So as it stands now, it has not changed. There was hope that it would. The credit is claimed in the year. It must be reported on the tax return, i.e., what year is the credit for, not when you receive the money. Again, it's the year that you apply for, not the year that you receive the money. So even though it may be received in 21, very few of those, more in 2022, and some of this very likely could go into 2023. It must be reflected either on the 2020 return, if it's a 2020. If it's a 21, it must be reflected on the 21 return. If you get in 2022, you got to go back and figure out what you're applying for. So potentially amended returns cover 2020 and 21. It is possible, which I'll mention here a little bit later, it may be possible in the 2019 return for the credit. Okay, so returns will have to be amended. The IRS is still backlogged. At the end of 2020, the backlog was about 24 million unprocessed returns. They put a surge team on it in March. It went from 24 million to 17 million. The surge team stopped. Their job was over after about 1 month. They're backlogged again because they've added additional returns for this year, for the 21 filing season. The IRS really has not ever issued clear guidance on which form to use. There's a form to use, but when you look at it, you can't find anywhere where it says ERTC. So the good news, we have time. And the good news also is, one, you get a tax credit refund. You've already got you have or will get the check. So you get both. You get the check, actual money, and a credit to reduce your future or past taxes. Very few credits do you get both. That's not commonplace, especially those who saw the credits for the flooding in Texas and Florida in particular. You just got a credit. You didn't get any money. So ultimately, it will reduce your tax liability. Why do returns have to be amended? So I'm going to cover this again. They passed the original rules by Congress in March of 2020. Then it was amended in December of 2020 to include a larger pool of companies. And this was retroactive to March of 2020, subject, of course, to many calculations for PPP, etc. The ERTC program continued in 2020 with an additional program that was added during April of 2021. So in essence, there are three different programs in a 2-year window. The calculations are different for all three. The rules are different, basically, for all three. There's some commonality, but a lot of the rules are different. They balance the calculations. Then we have the IRS's RV behind, as I mentioned previously. Very few ERTC checks were issued during 21. Very few. Some folks got it, especially if you filed Form 7200. That was difficult to do. Really difficult to do. Then we got August, when the rule came out on how the IRS wanted this to be treated. The rule, again, 16 months later after March of 2020, in August of 21, That's when the rules came out saying, here's how you need to report the ERTC in what year. So 16 months later, they issue the rules. Well, most people have filed their business returns in August of 21 for 20. And a lot of people have filed their personal returns in August of 21 for the year 2020. And so the rule changes hit the street, so to speak, in late August. It was passed in August. People had to read it, figure out what they were saying, and that's what was said. And that's when we communicated that in part of September communications. And we're going to attach this document here, so I'm not going to necessarily read everything here. Now, going back to amending returns, it is possible in some instances, not all. This is case-by-case situation. We may be able to go back and amend 2019 using some of these tax credits. How many returns have to be updated? As many as necessary, ultimately, at the end of the day. Could be business returns, personal returns, because most people have a pass-through entity. So lots of returns have to be amended. Pretty much all the payroll returns have already been done, unless we have someone who's a little bit late showing up. Those returns are done. They're still being processed in many instances by the IRS. Why is this ERTC better than other tax credits? This was, one, a refundable tax credit, as mentioned earlier. Most credits, you can only claim a tax credit on your return. This credit, you get, one, both a check for the full amount, and you also have a tax credit to reduce your personal taxes, dollar for dollar. It's not a deduction. It's a dollar for dollar reduction in your taxes, subject to lots of calculations. That's why for some taxpayers, there could be additional refund in any particular year, let's say for 19 or 20 or 21. For others, you actually may owe some taxes based upon the calculations. You're not losing your credits, though. Those aren't going away, but the way the calculations work out, it can actually change your taxable situation. But ultimately, you do come out ahead because in the future, you're paying less taxes because, again, it is a dollar for dollar reduction against your taxes. And this will impact companies. Financials will have to be changed. Yes, your financials are going to have to be revised potentially for 19, 20, 21. Amended returns for businesses, amended returns personally. So there are lots of moving parts to this. And that the process here is just now starting. And this is why we're sending out this communication. So when you start seeing some information come across from us saying, FYI, we are in the process of amending your returns, you'll kind of understand some of the background as to why and what's going on. So again, every situation is different. It's too difficult to give you an answer until we actually perform the task of running the calculations. So that's the ongoing saga of the ERTC program. Thanks.